Erin and I want to start with a really big, heartfelt first bite thank you. We have been so encouraged by your kind word, your messages, your glowing reviews of First Bite. This has been a labor of love for the last year and a half, and we are grateful for y'all being on the First Bite journey with us and supporting us because we work full time and this is a full-time gig on top of it. And we do it with joy because we understand that the world of early intervention pediatrics needs evidence in it. So we sweet talked the folks with speechtherapypd.com, and as a thank you giveaway, we have come up with a free pod course subscription. So once we hit 130 iTunes written reviews, we're going to pull another name out of the hat, probably with the assistance of an ever so handsome goose and a bear. And that person will get a free pod course subscription. So over 175 hours of continuing ed plus 19 new continuing hours each month. And there's a new episode every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every other Thursday, and the short course, 9 series long, All Things Ethics with Elise. And that's our way of giving back. So thank you. So please keep the reviews coming. We only have a few more to go, but once we hit 130, then we will pull that name out of a hat. Happy 2020. Thank you for joining us on the journey. And seriously, y'all rock. Thank you. Hey, so by now, I'm hoping that you've heard about the brand new pod course subscription that Speech Therapy PD has rolled out. For $79 a month, you get over 175 hours of ASHA continuing education with 19 new episodes a month. That's fantastic. Well, they want to make sure that you also know we have a brand new coupon code. So the coupon code is F as in first, B as in bite, followed by the number 20, FB20. And that brand new coupon code will give you $20 off the pod course subscription. So you get 175 hours of continuing ed plus an average of 19 new hours a month, all for $59 a year. And we cover everything from early intervention to schools to adults to ethics. So be sure to type in F as in first, B as in bite, and then the number's 20. Enjoy your coupon, or as my kinfolk say, enjoy that coupon.
Hey there, listener. This is Dr. Dakota Sharp, audiologist, clinical assistant professor, and lifelong learner, inviting you to join me on an exciting new podcasting journey known as On the Ear. As you know, audiology is ever evolving, so it's critical as professionals that we learn and grow as well. Every other Thursday, On the Ear will be interviewing a variety of clinicians and researchers spanning a wide range of hearing and communication topics. From pediatrics to geriatrics, cochlear implants to vestibular, speech to hearing, and everything in between, this podcast will provide exciting insights that you can use in your clinical practice. Each episode of On the Ear is available for 0.1 ASHA CEUs when you complete the accompanying pod course through speechtherapypd.com. For more information about On the Ear and to earn ASHA CEUs for this upcoming podcast, visit speechtherapypd.com/ear. That's speechtherapypd.com/ear. Thanks for listening and subscribing, and we'll see you soon.
Hi, folks, and welcome to First Bite. Fed, Fun, and Functional, a speech therapy podcast sponsored by speechtherapypd.com. I am your host on this nerd venture, Michelle Dawson, MS, CCC, SLP, CLC, the All Things Peds SLP. I am a colleague in the trenches of home health early intervention right there with you. I run my own private practice, Heartwood Speech Therapy, here in Coletown, South Carolina. And I guest lecture nationwide on best practices for early intervention for the medically complex and fragile child. First Bite's mission is short and sweet, to bring light, hope, knowledge, and joy to the pediatric clinician, parent, or advocate.
By way of a nerdy conversation, so there's plenty of laughter too.
In this podcast, we cover everything from AAC to breastfeeding.
ethics on how to run a private practice,
pediatric dysphagia to clinical supervision,
and all other topics in the world of pediatric speech pathology. Our goal is to bring evidence-based practice straight to you by interviewing subject matter experts.
to break down the communication barriers so that we can access the knowledge of their fields.
Or, as a close friend says, to build the bridge.
By bringing other professionals and experts in our field together, we hope to spark advocacy, joy, and passion for continuing to grow and advance care for our little ones.
Every fourth episode, I join in. I'm Erin Forward, MSP, CCC SLP, the Yankee by way of Rochester, New York transplant who actually inspired this journey. I bring a different perspective, that of a newish clinician with experience in early intervention, pediatric acute care, and nonprofit pediatric outpatient settings.
So sit back, relax, and watch out for all our squirrels and enjoy this geeky gig brought to you by SpeechTherapyPD.com. So today's episode falls once again in the lovely categories of fun and functional. And y'all, today we are covering the behind the scenes of functional communication. Okay, so I'm super geeking out because today we have the lovely Mr. Wyatt Franken from Talk to Me Technologies on. And this episode, it's kind of like my personal missing link for AAC, at least for me. I'm hoping for y'all too. But it's also, I kind of feel like I'm airing my dirty laundry here. So this is a lot. Okay, so here's the scoop. I met Wyatt and his sweet wife a few years ago at a SCISHA convention. Y'all go to your state association conferences. All the good things happen there. My very dear friend, Leslie, she actually went to grad school with Wyatt's wife. She introduced us and she said these magical words. Are you ready? She said, Michelle, he can totally bring the devices for you to your patients and meet with y'all there to trial. Dun, dun, dun. I was like, what? That is a game changer for the home health early intervention SLP right there. Y'all, Wyatt and his amazing colleagues at Talk to Me Technologies literally bring the AAC device of your choosing, including eye gaze and head trackers if you need it, and they bring it to you with the language system that you want on it already uploaded. I can't believe the words that I just said, but it's true. Okay, so fast forward a few years because like life happened and I had a patient, a little kiddo in need. Well, 3 actually, kind of sort of in the middle of the pandemic when our state assistive technology office was closed. And our man, Wyatt, he came through. Basically, he was these kiddos and their family's AAC hero, just missing the cape. Actually, one mom who's a seamstress that you bet was kind of like, I could fix that. And it has made all the difference for my patients. So I asked Wyatt to come on today to help explain the AAC approval process. Because as many times as I've helped a kiddo get established with AAC, I've honestly never had to do the behind the scenes stuff, the documentation and the report writing, the big document, because there was always an extenuating circumstances. For instance, I had several nonprofits in our area that would donate one for free with just a call. I've had several kiddos that were doing AAC trials on and doing the data collection on, and then they transferred to the school district, to the early childhood special education classroom. And that SLP picked up and I discharged. Or I had one little one that honestly passed away. And I've had a couple of little ones that were using AAC during doing the trials and they moved away. It's just the nature of the world of early intervention. But, and here is the very big but and the nerve-wracking but for me, y'all, I got to do the legwork like right now for all 3 of the patients. And I'm honestly really nervous because it's super daunting and I need to get this right. And I'm kind of a slight OCD perfectionist. So I figure if I needed to learn how, then I'm sure that there are others out there with me that are new to this and need to know how as well. So I am celebrating the unknown with y'all and with our dear friend Wyatt. So Wyatt, hi, welcome. Thank you for coming on and dealing with all of my nerves. Yay!
Well, thanks so much, Michelle. It's been so great to be a part of this with you, and I feel so honored to be a part of your podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, people love y'all. I mean, just so y'all know, Wyatt and his team, they come to every single SCISHA convention. They bring their devices. They've got booths. They let people practice on them. And you can go and they go to other state associations too. So, make sure that you check your state association listing when they have their vendors up, because you can go and meet them. And Wyatt, you have done a really good job of making it feel approachable, because AAC can be really scary, but you're very laid back, knowledgeable, but laid back. And I appreciate that. So thank you. But, okay. How did you find this as your calling? Because this is a weird one, just saying.
It definitely is, but I couldn't be happier with how things panned out. So long story short, in my college endeavors, I went to the University of Northern Iowa. I was struggling determining where I wanted my career path to go. And having terrible hearing as a kid, I had to visit an audiologist quite frequently. And so in undergrad, we had our audiology and speech language pathology program merged together with communicative sciences and disorders. So I went in actually wanting to become an audiologist so I could be Dr. Franken, but that didn't essentially go the way I wanted it to. But during my classes, about 90% of the classes we had were speech related. So I slowly went from becoming an audiologist to wanting to become a speech language pathologist. And in my undergrad, I worked with a couple AAC kiddos, and thankfully I was introduced to Talk to Me Technologies. So Talk to Me Technologies is actually based in my college town of Cedar Falls, Iowa. So I built a relationship with some employees at Talk to Me Technologies and really introduced me to AAC and kind of that world within speech language pathology. So my wife and I, she wasn't my wife then, but we graduated and we were trying to determine what we wanted to do. So I contacted Talk to Me Technologies right after undergrad and started working with them. And they were nice enough, once Megan got approved to the University of South Carolina for her master's program, they allowed me to head down there to South Carolina and work for them. And so ever since then, I've been traveling and working with patients, and kind of that's how I started my AAC journey, which was about a little over 5 years ago today. It's hard to say.
I, honest to God, thought y'all were based out of South Carolina because y'all are always here and you have such a good presence. I had no idea this was based out of Iowa.
Yep, you're right. You probably don't know a whole lot about Iowa, but it's a great place.
No, I do not. Corn. I think there's corn in Iowa. That's like the extent. I'm sorry,
That
everybody that lives in Iowa.
We love you. We love you, Iowans.
Thank you. My husband is really, really into maps because he's super nerdy. So we have a lot of atlases. And I thought the Sierra Mountains were the same thing as the Rocky Mountains. And I was really, really wrong. So yeah, but that's okay. It's west of the Appalachia. That's kind of the extent of my knowledge. Okay, I'm done embarrassing myself on that topic. Let's move along with the self-deprecating humor. Okay, so I have like 400 questions, but some of them are just kind of like broad scope pictures on like the state of AAC now. I will admit that I get in a professional rut, or I don't know, comfort zone. I think comfort zone's the better way to explain it. I'm fully biased. I love LAMP. I love that language system, and it has worked very, very well for me for like the high tech, for the patients that I've seen up until the pandemic hit, when I had several kiddos that wasn't going to work for due to their fine motor deficits. And one of them, the little one with the cortical vision impairment. So, you kind of helped throw me into a totally different language system, something that like really pulled me out of my comfort zone during a time when I'm so out of my comfort zone anyway. So this is just like, let's just immerse Michelle in all of the AAC. But in general, What types of equipments are you seeing as like the most popular and kind of in the highest demand right now? And I want like the details, sizes, types of devices, language. Like what are the trends in AAC right now?
Absolutely. So it's all very client specific, whether you're working with adults or working with pediatrics. But I would say in the pediatric world, direct select devices, patients accessing the device with their finger, are definitely the most popular. When working with pediatrics, we work with a lot of different diagnoses, autism, cerebral palsy. And from an efficiency standpoint, if we can get a child or an adult using a device via direct selection, it's probably going to be the most efficient. But with that being said, I've seen a whole lot of different change in the AAC world since I've started. With the direct select devices, I mean, there's different types. With our devices, we have our WeGos and our Zubos, but also we have different devices out there like the Accents.
Right. Explain what a WeGo versus a Zubo is. Wait,
Yes.
Stop. Can you give us our website? Give us your website really quick. That way folks can, if you're not driving, you can pull it up. Okay. All right, go for it.
So if you check out our website, it is www.talktometechnologies.com. And that's talk to T-O, not the number. But on there, you'll see all our different devices, access methods, mounts, etc. But we offer two different types of devices. We have devices that are more iOS based, and those are called our WeGos, W-E-G-O. The way I like to remember it is wherever you go, we go. And then we also have devices that are called our Zubos. These are more Windows-based devices. There's different communication platforms available on the different devices, but we'll touch on that here in a little bit.
Okay. And they all come in different sizes. Okay, so
Yes.
The WeGos, you've got a 5-inch, 7-inch, 10-inch, 13-inch.
That's correct, yep.
And I think for the most part, most of my little ones have been using your 10-inch one.
That is correct. I would say the most popular of the direct select devices are typically the 7-inch and the 10-inch devices. The 10-inch is more of like a standard size that if you're working with a client that doesn't have any visual impairments or maybe no fine motor planning issues, we can go with either the 10-inch or the 7-inch. And then the 5-inch and the 13-inch are really dependent on the client. If we do have some visual impairment, some people will lean towards the larger device, larger buttons, easier to see, easier to access. But then I do work with some older clients that the 5-inch device is really, really nice. It's not too big. It's not too bulky. It's really easy to fit in a pocket and be able to whip it out and communicate really fast and maybe not have that stigma of having a communication device.
Oh, I could see that being popular with teenagers.
Absolutely. Work with some different diagnoses of like locked-in syndrome, and where those 5-inch devices are just really, really nice. It almost looks like the size of a phone, so it fits into their day-to-day really nice. Our Zubo devices are a little bit different sizing. We have a 10-inch device, we have a 12-inch device, and we have an 18-inch device. So that's also just kind of depending on the client and what access method they have and maybe what their motor status is.
Okay. Those really large ones, this is something that I've always struggled with because I'm not the OT. So for the larger devices, whose job responsibility is it to get like a connector to their wheelchair, or where does that normally just like fall in? Because honestly, I've never had to order like a support in order to like get it connected because I've had an OT that I worked with or the schools took it over. Is that part of the Medicaid funding? I mean, help. That's a question.
That is a great question. So with Talk to Me Technologies, like some other AAC companies as well, we have our own, all the services and supports that we offer. So we here at Talk to Me call it the TTMT 360 effect. So mounting is part of
TTMT 360 effect. Okay, I had it depacked to everything you said. All right, I'm with you now. Go.
I wish I could show you my hand signals I'm having with this 360 effect.
That's great.
But the mounting and all the other accessories are a part of our TTMT 360. So if I'm working with an adult or a pediatric client that needs an eye gaze, and maybe they need the largest 18-inch screen, and say mobility wise, they spend most of their time in a wheelchair, you're looking at different mounting. So that is something that an AAC specialist like myself would be able to assist with. So while I'm there for the evaluation or during the trial, or if I'm meeting with them, we can discuss what different mounting options there are. So mounting is something that's not, I would say, extremely well known, but there's so many different solutions out there. So for mounting, just break it down real quick. We have standard table mounts that go on a flat surface. We have rolling mounts that come on a wheel base. So if, say, we are working with somebody that spends some time in a wheelchair, maybe in their favorite lazy boy recliner or in bed, these devices can roll, say, underneath the bed or to the side of a chair, and then we can adjust the angle of the device so it can be accessible to them.
Okay,
for my patients, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking, is it like a cross between like an IV pole and like, oh my gosh, the little, I'm thinking of my grandma. My grandma has like a little table that goes, that it's like her TV dinner table. I don't know what else to call it, but is it like a cross between an IV pole and like a movable TV dinner table?
I would say maybe a little bit of similarity.
I'm very visual, Wyatt. I'm trying to pull the picture.
I know, I wish. So I'm thinking, think of a 4-wheel base that makes kind of like a C. Then at on part of the base, you have an arm that goes straight up and then an arm that comes across. So the wheels allow you to roll underneath something. So your wheels could be 3 feet underneath the bed, and then the arm that comes up would come up right on the side of where they're at. And then the device mounts to the piece going horizontal. And that's the thing that's adjustable. So think of like a 4-wheel base with one arm that comes up. So you can go super high in the air up to about 8 to 10 feet in the air. And then an arm that comes across where you can adjust angles. So if somebody's laying in their bed on their back, I could mount the device 5 feet up in the air over top of them so that they're able to access it no matter what environment.
Awesome. Okay. Now I'm with you. Okay. All right. But you guys handle all of that. So that way, if we have a family, I'm just thinking for all of us clinicians that are working out in rural locations or just in a high demand area that do not have occupational therapists to collaborate with on mounting, or, I know some durable medical equipment companies sell adaptive supports. That's something that's embedded with it.
Absolutely. So essentially each company has their own mounting solutions. And so no matter what company you're working with, they should be able to assist you with the type of mounts that they work with. Similar to AAC companies, there's a lot of different mounting companies out there as well. So there is a lot of different solutions to choose from, and we'll be able to assist with that in many ways. So something that we offer is we can actually take physical photos of a wheelchair, of a walker, or any part of assistive equipment that they're using. We submit that to the mounting team that we work with. And what they do is they develop a solution based on the needs of that individual client. And then they'll actually provide you with a photo, the physical photo that you took, and they will Photoshop their solution into it so that the SLP, the OT, PT, parents, anybody working with that client can see the solution that they've come up with and whether or not they think it would be appropriate. So it's kind of like an opportunity to collaborate with as many people on the team and figure out exactly what we're wanting for that mount. And then we take care of that. So say we come up with a wheelchair mount for your client, we would set that up, contact the mounting company, and then it would be delivered along with the device. So it would be covered via their insurance. I got to put a little disclaimer in there. Every insurance is different. Some insurance companies will only allow for one mount, and some companies will allow for combination mounts. So if you're working with a insurance company that allows multiple mounts, you could technically get a wheelchair mount and a rolling mount for a client instead of just one.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that there was a clause in insurance companies for the quantity of mounts. So huzzah. Okay. So then building off of that one, we have a little one that we're looking at head tracker and eye gaze for because what they found was at home, they could recalibrate the eye gaze, but it wasn't functional to recalibrate when they were like on the go, say at like, they go out to eat a lot, right? And it's not always easy to recalibrate there, but the head tracker was way easier for them to use. So can you talk to us about like the attachments and kind of what the difference is?
Between eye gaze and head tracker?
Well, yes, but like also what other attachments there are available.
Okay, absolutely. So yeah, there's, depending on what kind of client you're working with, there's so many different attachments and different access methods that we can work with, and more coming out. That's why I love technology. I love being in this business. So when it comes, certain devices allow for different access methods. So our WeGos, the main access methods with those are going to be direct select. So using your finger, direct select with a key guard. A key guard is a hard piece of plastic that would go over the face of the device so that it helps the client with their intended targets. So if they like to rest their whole hand on the face of the device, this would allow them to do that and then put their finger or a knuckle through their intended target. Also attachable with that are switches. So there are so many switches out there. Standard jelly bean switch. That is, when I think of a jelly bean switch, I think of Staples That Was Easy button. That's a really standard switch that's really easy to be placed in different places.
Wyatt, I got to stop you for 1 second. I taught a kiddo how to say they needed to go to the bathroom with a Staples That Was Easy button like a lifetime ago. And so the fact that you like, because she had really severe constipation. So like we were trying to like, and she would like hold it because of that, which would like exacerbate the constipation. So when you say Staples That Was Easy, all I can think is Lysol spray, because it was always like we would work with that. And then like the OT and the sped teacher would take care of the toileting, but I had to stand outside with the Lysol spray for the rest of the, sorry, that was a trip down a very awkward memory lane. All right, continue. Yes, but the switch device, the jelly bean, like Staples. I'm with you.
That is an all-time story. We'll have to talk about that some other time.
Yeah, that's an adult beverage after next Skisha convention story. How about that?
Sounds like a plan. But we could probably spend a whole podcast going over the different switches. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, Michelle, but they're called proximity switches. So proximity switches help clients that don't have the best fine motor. So if they struggle being able to access the switch, a proximity switch doesn't force you to fully hit it with an elbow or a hand. As long as they get close to the switch, it will activate the switch. So
I didn't know about that.
So if you're working with somebody with cerebral palsy and they're wanting to use some sort of switch access, that might be a good switch for them if they don't have the best accuracy when trying to access that switch. Another type of switch. Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking. I have seen Carol and I did an episode a long time ago, and she was talking about how there's some research now where some patients were using switch access, and what they did is they were using switch access with their knees. So they were putting it in the wheelchair, right? And because, for whatever reason, they couldn't access with their hands and they wanted to do that. They were showing that they were actually having wearing out the hip the hip ball socket joint because of the motion in some of these patients. And so they were, troubleshooting, I guess, in the research study, like what better access methods it was. And the takeaway was, as an SLP, you need to work with physical therapists and occupational therapists and maybe even orthopedic team to find out what was ideal, because the long-term use of that can break down a body part that wasn't designed to move in that motion. And I found that fascinating because I had never, ever put that thought together. So interesting research. All right, continue. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No, that's a great point and a great thing to think about when trying to find a solution for a client.
Mm-hmm.
Some different switch types of switches. A puff switch. I'm not sure if you've ever worked with that, but similar to a switch, this one would go near the client's mouth. And if they have the ability to maybe blow out air, this would tell the switch to activate in that way. So if they don't have the ability to move their knee or their hand or any of their appendages, a puff switch might be something that would work really well for them. If I'm working with somebody and they don't like the puff switch, there's also such thing as a chin switch, or I've had a patient actually use his bottom lip to control the mouse. So this would either go by the chin or mouth or some body part. And think about how you would access your laptop or desktop computer. You grab the mouse and you move the mouse around. This is essentially what this patient would do, but with their chin or with their mouth. They would move that chin switch and it would kind of move the cursor on the screen so that they could access it that way. So that's a really narrowed in way to describe a lot of switches. But if you want to invite me back sometime, we can spend a whole podcast on switches.
Yes. And y'all, just so if you need the visual, if you get on the website, they have a link down under shop specifically just on switch devices, because I know how visual a learner I am, but he's got all of them right there. You can see the chin switch. You can see exactly what he's talking about. So most excellent. Okay. All right. All right. So these devices, while I'm looking at them, the devices and the switches, they're expensive. So, does Medicaid or Medicare, do they pay for most of these devices? What if you have a change in status? Like, what if you get one switch device, but then the child makes progress and you need an additional switch device? Like, what typically happens with insurance then? Because I've gone to the trouble of getting one thing set up and then the kid has a major breakthrough, or they get their seizures managed and now they're making progress, or in the opposite effect, their baseline etiology exacerbates. Maybe they have a new bleed or just the disease takes its natural progression. What does the funding say on devices and frequency of ordering new equipment? I've always wondered that.
That is a great question. And similar to my answer earlier, each insurance works a little bit different on what they'll approve. And when it comes to alternative access method, how many switches, and eye gaze, head trackers, etc. So something that not a lot of people know about, and something that I recommend really highly to anybody who's starting to work with somebody, we can always do what we call funding checks on the front end. So say you're working with a kiddo or an adult patient and you're really curious, hey, they have Medicaid and Blue Cross Blue Shield. What is going to be covered? What will they cover? What requirements do they need before they'll approve a device and accessories? So you could contact me or your own AAC consultant, and really what we'll take is their insurance card information and some general release of information, which would allow us to contact before we start a trial, before we set up an evaluation or anything. We can run that check and then we'll know exactly how much would be covered if they do want to go through insurance, what stipulations they have. So maybe only one mount, maybe only one accessory. So we can have all that information on the front end before we even start. So say we get a green light for funding and say they're going to they're willing to fund some alternative access. So say you do start out with a switch with a client, things are going really, really well. And then all of a sudden we have a change in client status. Something happens. They're no longer able to access the device in that given method, whether it be switch access or eye gaze or even direct select. What you can do at any point after a child receiving or an adult receiving a device, if there's a change in client status, you can always submit an addendum to insurance to get something else funded. I'm not guaranteeing that they'll approve it, but as long as in your addendum report you show that there's a change in client status, why the current access method is no longer accessible to them or why it no longer works, you really got to beef up that addendum report. But as long as you're showing the change in status is the big thing. But as long as you have that and a lot of supporting information, you can get another access method approved.
That's fantastic. Because, and they already know that for the most part, there's been a change in status because they're the insurance company. So they've been footing the bill for the change in status, most likely. So yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Also, that's so delightful to know that you can find out in advance because I hate the unknown. That's what has scared me. What if you have a kid that's making progress? What if the insurance says no? The what if? So knowing that you can work collaboratively going into it, that's
my number one thing, Michelle. It absolutely breaks my heart if you're doing some trials with a kiddo and say they're just doing so awesome with the device and being a rock star, they really want to move forward, and then we find out, hey, their insurance is only going to cover 80%, and there's going to be some out-of-pocket costs, which may or may not be
affordable for the family.
Exactly, and it just breaks my heart to share that. So as long as we have the information on the front end, we can go at the trial, we can do all the exploring that we need, knowing that if we do find something appropriate that works for them, we will get that funding for them, which is a good feeling.
Also, folks, in the event that you are working with a different company that does not have that knowledge in advance, please check nonprofits and check your state supports, because I know here in South Carolina, there's a really great association or funding called Amplify Life. And it's through one of the South Carolina departments, like it's funded by the state government. And they have come through for me in the past on a patient, actually 2 patients. And it's been super easy to work with. So every state has a different protocol, a different program. So just put that little thought in the back of your head.
I did want to take a step back real quick, if you don't mind, Michelle. You'd asked me previously about the additional attachments that are available on devices. So I really only covered direct select with a key guard and switch access. But with certain devices, we also have eye gaze attachments. So if you're working with a client, we actually have multiple different eye gaze options. So depending on who you're working with, we could actually explore both of those and see if one works better than the other. So eye gaze is an attachment for our Zubo devices. And another access method that not a lot of people are knowledgeable about are head mouse or head mice, if you're talking more than one. There's a lot of different, some people will call them head trackers as well. So there's different types of head trackers. A really popular one is called the Head Mouse Nano, and Head Tracker Pro is one that some people may know as well. This type of head tracker requires a silver dot be placed somewhere on the patient, whether it be in between their eyes, on the rim of the glasses, maybe on a finger, and that is what the head tracker is going to follow. So when you think of eye gaze, that client is accessing the device with their pupils, where with head tracker, we're not tracking their eyes. It's essentially tracking that little silver dot. So some people really go ahead.
Wait, I need to let everybody know. Also, please keep an eye as to where you put those little silver dots, because one of Wyatt and I's friends' little sister saw her big sister with a silver dot on her forehead. And when her mom's back was turned 0.2 seconds later, she had all the other silver dots all over herself and had made herself beautiful, like confetti. So like, they're not stickers and or stick-on earrings as some of the siblings may misinterpret them to be. So like, comedic real life early intervention moment right there. But all right, so also an unrelated question, are those little silver dots very expensive? Just kind of throwing that ball out there.
Yeah, as soon as you said that about her putting them all over her body, I kind of cringed a little bit because they are pretty pricey. If you would get a head tracker, I believe they supply you with a good amount, maybe like a little strip of like 50 maybe. We've tried some solutions of getting some like reflective duct tape and trying to make circles to work, and it doesn't work as well. So I recommend, if you do get it, hold on to those things, hide them. We don't want them to be like confetti. We want them to be used for the purpose. But I will say, if the patient does say put them on the rim of their glasses, that one silver dot could last as long as a year if it's staying clean. But if you're putting it on your oily skin in between your eyes, you might be able to reuse it a couple times, but after a while it's going to lose its stick and you're going to have to grab a new one.
Yeah. So that's fun and delightful. I apologize for the interruption, but I just thought that we should know that that's like a real life possibility. And
that's a great story.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I feel really bad now. Continue. I'm sorry.
There is an alternative type of head tracker that doesn't require the silver dot. One that's really popular, I call it the Qhazono. Some people, it's called Qhazono. Qhazono is how I pronounce it. So I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it differently than other people, but this doesn't require the silver dot, but more of a USB. So think of, I'm trying to think of the size of my thumbnail, which isn't helpful to you viewers, but it's about that big, and it comes with a headband, an eyeglass clip. You could put it on a baseball hat. You can put it on a wrist strap. And instead of tracking that silver dot, the computer is going to be tracking that USB. So think about being in class. The professor has a bunch of stuff written on the board, and they're using a laser pointer to point on the board. That's essentially what the Qhazono is. It's kind of a laser pointer that we're attaching to the client, and that becomes the mouse. And then they're able to move their head, their hand, wherever they have it mounted on themselves, and then the device will track it that way.
Awesome. Y'all, he has multiple examples, and they're stylish and cute. I mean, like some of them, like the headbands, there's like fuchsia pink, bright red, and you can get and I know that sounds pithy to say, but for a lot of people, they still, if they're going to have adaptive equipment, moms, we look at like, is this socially acceptable? I mean, I know when we picked out Bear's helmet that he had to have when he was little, like I was like, if we're going to have a helmet, it's going to be fantastic, right? So we got the race car one. So, I mean, those are thoughts that parents put in as well. So yeah, these are great. Although the hat, you can't really see the baseball cap for the mouse. You can't really see the hat. We got to pick a different color there, Wyatt.
That's okay. You can use your own baseball cap at home if you like.
I didn't know if the hat came with it. I was like, oh, that's going to get dirty. Y'all, it's a cream hat. That's not going to last in one round in the dirt.
No, it just has a universal clip that you're able to clip on any baseball cap, really. You could even wear what do they call them? What did Steve Spurrier always wear? I can't think of it now.
I'm just happy that I know who he is, because most football references I don't get. So like a visor, is it the visor?
Visor, yes, a visor. Sorry, I'm not a hat or a visor guy, so I couldn't remember. Yeah. Thank you. So, you know who Steve Spurrier is. I'm proud of you.
Yes. Well, I mean, the football stadium's a mile from my house. This one I have to know. I mean, the guy before him, I may not remember his name, but him, yes. So, okay. All right. I have a tendency to get people off track. Did we cover all of your switch access devices and all the different device
I guess I'll add one more brief thing. So within the last year, iOS has come out with their integrated camera. And so what's great with that is some of the devices, our WeGo 13A and our WeGo 5A, allow for integrated head tracking. So that requires no silver dot or no USB whatsoever to be worn by the client. Instead, what happens is the camera, whether it's you, the client, or anybody who's in front of the screen, it essentially creates its own 3D image and starts tracking the head that way. So without really having a calibration or a silver dot or anything, you can access the WeGo 5A and 13A devices with a 13-inch and the 5-inch using head tracking without anything to be worn. So it's really cool. So you could have, say, direct select turned on, and say towards the end of the day, the client gets tiresome, you could turn on the head tracking and then they'll move the cursor with their head. It's pretty incredible.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, the pace of technology and what it does for us. Wow, that's cool. Also, I feel like we should talk about my friend with the silver dots later, because that
Okay.
might need to
Sounds
happen.
good.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So let's just keep on trucking, because we have 20 minutes slightly there under, and I know we need to allocate time for questions. All right. So when an SLP, such as yours truly in the middle of a pandemic, goes to supply a patient and their loved one with an AAC device, how long is the typical trial period? How many devices? Okay, so like I know I've got a couple kiddos. We did like the trial devices. For one of them, it was the thing. It was perfect. It was exactly what we needed. Let's roll. For the other one, we're still hit or missing. And then for my other one, oh, that's a conversation for later. So how long is the typical trial period, and how many different devices do most folks go through before they find the it?
Absolutely. That's a great question. This is, once again, I feel like that's my go-to answer, so I'm sorry, but it's always very client specific. So like our one friend that we're working with here in South Carolina, we have this great South Carolina Assistive Technology program that actually loans out devices themselves. So I have a lot of clients that reach out to me and they've already done their pre-trials. They've used the device, whether in the school or through a program like South Carolina Assistive Technology, or they've done a lot of their background research, and they might reach out to me and be like, hey, Wyatt, we really, really love Proloquo to Go on this 10-inch device. This kiddo uses it at school efficiently. They use it in their private practice, and we really want to get them a device. So thankfully, in our state of South Carolina, there isn't an official 4-week trial required period. So for clients like that who've already done trials either in the school or through their SLP directly, I can actually obtain devices for individuals without doing a formal trial through us. But what I will say is most teams want to at least do a 4-week trial. And some SLPs that I work with and some teams, they know a specific software. They really, really like it. I know that you had mentioned that, you're a fan of LAMP. You love the acquisition. You love everything about it, and that's great. And what you said is that you work with some clients that it may not be appropriate for. So what's great through us is kind of like you had mentioned, on a trial device, I can put a lot of those different communication softwares on there for the team to see on that trial device. So
Okay, wait, let me translate that again slowly. So you get one device, y'all, and it's got a bunch of different languages. So like Proloquo to Go, the Board Maker, LAMP, Words for Life. You can trial all of the different ones, and that was honestly the first time I've been able to do that. And I totally sat down with, Wyatt, we did a disservice. You can actually get set up with a 4-week trial just for the SLP. So while he had these devices trials going with my patients, I'm not there because of the pandemic to like train the family and to do the modeling on the device with the kid. So Wyatt's team sent me my own, and it was a great big box. And yet there I am with it. And my sweet, lovely summer intern, she was like, all right, so I've never seen one like this. And I'm like, let's do it, baby. And so like we got to practice with it, which was, I think that's fantastic. All right. I'm sorry. I squirreled again, but that was just, I've never heard of a company doing that before. And that was very exciting to me.
Definitely something that I think is really important. If you don't, as a speech language pathologist, if you're not comfortable with the device or whatever program that you're working with, it's going to be really, really hard to model and to teach that to whoever you're working with. So the SOP knowledge is just as equally as important as patient or parent knowledge as well. So it is very important, and we do that all the time as well. So if I'm working with somebody who's brand new at AAC, they're not quite sure, what particular setup, before we even set up the student or the adult, the client trial, as an SLP, I can provide you with a loan so you can do your own exploration and get yourself feeling comfortable. So if you do start that 4-week trial with the kid themselves, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with everything and not feel so much like a deer in a headlight.
I feel like that's how I live my life on a day-to-day basis, but I digress.
I'm guilty as charged as well.
Yeah.
Still, you say you do a 4-week trial as an SLP and you're like, I think this kiddo is going to do pretty good based on their goals with, say, word power 60 on touch chat and maybe an 84 location on LAMP. You can go in and say your first couple sessions with that. You can explore those two things, those two softwares, or maybe even more, to try to really hone in on what you think is going to be most appropriate. And then, we can always set up a 4-week trial honing in specifically on that particular software and setup so that as an SLP, you're getting plenty of good documentation about how they're using it and feeling comfortable in your recommendation. That is number one, 100%, is I want you to feel comfortable as a speech language pathologist. I want parents to feel comfortable with the device, and I want the client to be proficient and really, I want you to find a software that's going to be appropriate for them. And if it takes multiple trials to find that, that's fine. But if, say, you're kind of like with our one friend, Michelle, we're 2 weeks into a trial and wow, they're just killing it. They're doing so good. You don't need to essentially keep on trialing other devices if you don't want to, but you can. It's your recommendation. I want you to feel comfortable. I want everybody to feel comfortable with that. So that's why I think it's so powerful to have our devices with those different softwares, because it's empowering you as a speech language pathologist to really see everything that's out there and really hone in on what specific components of a device are going to be appropriate for the client that we're working with. Go ahead.
I was going to say it makes it less scary, because in a lot of other settings, we only have the device with the one language on it because of the cost behind getting the different languages, for lack of a better phrase. And having the trial device, it has allowed me to learn the other options on my own time, which, I mean, you don't want to, I'm always afraid of looking like a complete idiot when I'm stumbling through, but that gives me the confidence building time, because I get socially awkward and socially anxious. So for those of you that are out there that are in the same boat, he hit the nail on the head. It's very much a confidence booster for helping you help others. So, yeah.
Something that I'll piggyback off on that is, you had asked how many devices they typically go through until they find one. From an insurance standpoint, most insurance companies want to see that you've at least looked at, trialed, or considered 3 different AAC options, whether that be low tech, mid tech, or high tech. So say in a chain of events, maybe you start working with sign language with a kiddo and works pretty well, but not everyone in their communicative not all their communicative partners know American Sign Language. So you essentially ruled it out and you kept on exploring. Now maybe you move to PECs and other low-tech options, a communication notebook. Now you're moving up. Now you're using a tablet with a free app that you found online. And for that got ruled out for reasons of doesn't have warranty, training, or anything that goes into that. And then from there, maybe you move up to mid-tech or high-tech. So from an insurance standpoint, they want to see that you've at least looked at, considered, or trialed at least 3 different options before they'll approve a device. So say you want to try multiple high-tech, there's nothing wrong with that. What it's going to do is just it's going to bolster your report and really show that you've done your due diligence and tried other things. But like I said, if you find a setup and a software that's just perfect for that kiddo, as long as you're showing that some low-tech and mid-tech options were considered or trialed in a report, you should have no trouble getting the funding.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then here comes the hard one. I like how I swallowed really hard right before I went to ask this question. Okay, so what are some of the chief components that are necessary in an AAC report that I need to have in order for insurance to approve it? Also, I have to give a very important disclaimer right here. It is the speech language pathologist, not the SLPA, not the liaison with the assistive technology company, but the speech language pathologist responsibility to write the report. I have heard things on the rumor mill where other companies have given the SLP the report to just basically sign off on. Y'all, that is an ethical issue. We are not allowed to do that, nor is the speech language pathology assistant allowed to write the report, because it's the report that falls on the SLP to do the data collection and to write the report. Okay, so with those disclaimers being stated, dun, 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 what do I have to put in this to make sure that it gets approved?
Absolutely. So really, the more the better, but I'll go through some of the main things that insurance companies are typically wanting to see in their reports. We're going to have the client demographics, adding that information, talking about, hey, who are we working with here? Who's the client? Some of their background information, their expressive language, their receptive language, potential written language or reading, and maybe their cognitive status. You're going to hit on their current communication needs, how they currently communicate, and X, Y, and Z, why that's not working for them now, and why we're seeking other modes of communication. And within that, you're going to hit on the sensory and motor status. So that will really help for those if you're trying to get an eye gaze or somebody that's not direct select. In this section, you can really explain why alternative access is needed. They're maybe not able to physically touch a device. And so that's why we're going with the switch or why we're going with an eye gaze. And you're also going to hit on the required features needed of an AAC device to fit their current communication needs. So why the key guard is essential, why the mount, and why the alternative access is required for this particular client. So that stuff's pretty easy. As an SLP, you know these kiddos, hopefully, and that information shouldn't be too different than what you're usually used to putting in a report. From there, we want to show kind of what I hit on earlier, what we tried before ending up with our intended device. So did we try sign language? Did we try PECs? Did we try mid-tech AAC? Kind of hitting on at least 3 things that you guys worked on until you get to what you're wanting to recommend. So once you kind of rule out why those other ones aren't appropriate, then you're really going to beef up why that particular device access method and setup worked and why you're choosing to apply for that. So you're going to, why you chose the device, what about the device works so well, what kind of setup are you using? Are you using a more of a core word setup, more of a phrase-based setup, kind of just explaining exactly what the setup of the device is. And then this is a big thing, so make sure you star this. Insurance companies want to know that the device, that you guys have used the device and examples of use of using the device. And usually they want to have multiple environments. So say little Johnny used the device at school to say XYZ. Little Johnny used the device at home to request this. While in a speech therapy session, Johnny pressed more to indicate that he wanted more pretzels. So an example of use is literally them, just an example of them using the device. Depending on what state you're in, what insurance company you're working with, some require more than not. I know in some states they require like 50 examples of use, where here in South Carolina, we always try to get at least 3 environments and as many examples of use as possible. So basically we're showing insurance that, hey, this is what we chose and we tried it and this is how successful they were with it. And then that's really the big part, is just justifying and showing why it was appropriate. And then at the end of your report, you're probably going to have a treatment plan and follow-up goals. After receiving the device, we're showing insurance that there's goals intact to promote growth with the device, because they don't want to approve a device that's just going to sit in a corner in the laundry room collecting dust. We want it to be used, and they want to see that there's goals in place to keep the growth coming. If that makes sense.
Yes. And on that note, y'all, I have one of the reasons, and I probably should have said at this beginning, that I have stopped the progress with an AAC device and often discharged is if I have gone through all of the other factors. If we have tried low tech, if we have tried ASL, if we have tried multiple formats, and then I bring out a high-tech speech generating device as a loaner, and every time you go, the battery's dead, or it's missing, or the family can't find it, or siblings have turned off guided access and have started playing on the iPad, or if it's just collecting dust, or if it's in their backpack and they never take it out. I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to make a pitch to the insurance company justifying a need when I can't establish buy-in. And that's okay, because as a clinician, I get clinically frustrated when I know that this kiddo needs this, but I have to step back and remember I'm not part of this family unit. And yes, the child may need it, but this may not be the time for the family, given whatever the other variables are, to actually implement and buy into the AAC device, because there's a season for everything. Does it make me clinically frustrated and hot mad? Oh, you better believe it. But I have to remember, it's early intervention is about the family and not just the child. So when that happens, I often say, all right, how about we take a break from therapy? Look, we've hit a plateau, and that's okay, because for some of our children with certain diagnoses, the diagnoses will always mean that they will qualify for services. It doesn't mean that it's always right. And often what you'll find is the family's relieved that they just need a break, that they are burnt out, and that's okay. So put it away and then circle back around. Or maybe after you have said that we need this for months, and the family doesn't want to do it, and when they finally get to the point that they want to do it, maybe they don't want to do it with you and they want to try it with someone else. And that's okay too. And trust me, that's a hard one to swallow. Been there, done that personally a couple of months ago. But at the end of the day, it's what's best for that kid. So make sure you're talking with the doctors, make sure you're talking with their school colleagues, anybody else that's working with the kid that's pertinent to that plan of care, and just say, hey, I think we're going to take a therapeutic break on this for a minute. we'll circle back around maybe if you speak to them about it, because sometimes they need to hear the message from somebody else. And that's really, really deep and personal and super passionate, but it needs to be said. So, okay. All right. We have 2 minutes left because I went off on a soapbox. All right. So how often does an insurance approve a device? Dun, dun, dun.
So it used to be a really strict 5-year rule, and that was Medicare and most all insurances. But as times have changed, technology's increased, insurance has got a little bit better. I've had some people at the 3 and 4 year mark, whether they had a change in status or something just was really, the other device was really not appropriate. I have had people at the 3 and 4 year mark get new devices, but the golden rule is 5 years. So if we can wait 5 years, insurance won't really blink an eye. But if you're going to try between 3 and 5 years, you're really going to have to beef up that addendum and show why the previous device is no longer appropriate and why this new one is being funded. So that would be another situation where you'd really, really communicate with an AAC consultant like myself or anybody else you're working with to really determine. So if you're going to, before 5 years, apply for another device, let's really, really make sure that this new access method or new device is going to be appropriate, if that makes sense.
Okay, but what if they break it? Like before the 3 to 5 years? Like what if they legit?
So most companies offer a warranty. Different companies offer different warranties, but as long as you're in that warranty period, you should, if you break the device, it should be covered. But say that the company you're working with only offers a 2-year warranty. Between that year, if it breaks, I believe that you would most likely have to pay out of pocket, but that doesn't mean you couldn't apply to insurance to fund the repair. I've never had to do that and hopefully never will. But yeah, if it breaks before the 3-year mark, I really hope that doesn't happen for you. I would communicate with the consultant or the company that you worked with to get the device to see if there's anything they can do to assist with that.
Okay, so the last question of the hour. You have a captive audience of SLPs. So is there in a minute and a half, is there anything you want us to know that you think we should know?
Yes, I do. So I will say that a lot of people are intimidated by AAC, and I think it's not the best taught in undergrad or master's. And if you're not working with it consistently, and maybe you're never worked with a population that requires AAC, everybody's so scared of it, and it breaks my heart because it's not as daunting as it seems. What I want to tell you guys is to lean hard on your AAC consultants, on your state programs that do assistive technology, maybe with some former colleagues or maybe some grad school friends that know AAC. Lean hard on them and we'll help you. Like you mentioned, I'm completely open into going into homes to meet with clients and teams together, or just to meet with you one-on-one as an SLP to try to make this as easy as possible for you. My goal is the same as yours, and that's to find this child or adult maybe another way to communicate. And I don't want you to feel like you're being forced or rushed or anything. It's all non-binding. It's just trying to make it easier for you guys. And no question that I've ever received is a bad question, because everybody's education is different and their exposure is different. And so if you have questions about anything, you can always reach out to me and I'm happy to help. I wish it wasn't so scary to people, and I'm hoping that we can hopefully shed some light and make y'all feel a little bit more comfortable and confident in your AAC recommendations.
No question is scary, although the misuse and abuse of silver stickers as earrings and confetti. Oof, that's okay. So she's really cute though. All right. So Wyatt, if someone wants to reach out to you with additional questions or set up an AAC trial or reach out to the company, can you give us contact information really quick?
Absolutely. So I can be reached via email at Wyatt, WYATT, at talktometechnologies.com. I know it's really long, but it's TalkToMeTechnologies.com. I'm out of breath. But similar to that, you can check out our website at www.talktometechnologies.com. And within our website, there is an inquiry section. So if you're curious with wherever you're at here in the United States, who the representative is, and maybe having somebody to come meet with you or answer any questions, you can submit those online, and we will get you hooked up with the correct Talk to Me Technology employee. And you can also find us on Facebook. I believe it's www.facebook.com/talktometechnologies. So, like I said, reach out with your questions. If you're in the Southeast, in the South Carolina area, please feel free to email me directly at Wyatt@talktometechnologies.com. Or if you're not, I'm still happy to answer any questions that you have.
Feeding Matters guides system-wide changes by uniting caregivers, professionals, and community partners under the Pediatric Feeding Disorder Alliance. So what is this alliance? The Alliance is an open access collaborative community focused on achieving strategic goals within 3 focus areas: education, advocacy, and research. So who is the Alliance? It's you. The Alliance is open to any person passionate about improving care for children with a pediatric feeding disorder. To date, 187 professionals, caregivers, and partners have joined the Alliance. You can join today by visiting the Feeding Matters website at www.feedingmatters.org. Click on PFD Alliance tab and sign up today. Change is possible when we work together. That's a wrap, folks. Once again, thank you for listening to First Bite, fed, fun, and functional. I'm your humble but yet sassy host, Michelle Dawson, the All Things Peds SLP. This podcast is part of a course offered for continuing education through SpeechTherapyPD.com. Please check out the website if you'd like to learn more about CEU opportunities for this episode, as well as the ones that are archived. And, as always, remember, feed your mind, feed your soul, be kind, and feed those babies.